The warning came at midnight. Daeho was asleep in his quarters at the observation outpost when the emergency alarm pulled him from his dreams. Red lights flashed through the small room as he stumbled out of bed and rushed to the communication center. Commander Jisu's face appeared on the main screen. She was aboard the Gus Horizon, a military vessel stationed in the nearby star system. Her expression was grim. "We have a problem," she said without greeting. "Kravik raiders. A full fleet of 12 ships heading directly for Tessara Prime. They will arrive in approximately 18 hours. Daeho felt his stomach drop. He knew about the Kravik. Everyone in the Galactic Union knew about the Kravik. They were a predatory species that survived by raiding undefended worlds, taking resources and capturing populations for slave labor. They were brutal, efficient, and completely without mercy. "The Vellani have no military," Daeho said. "They have no weapons. They cannot fight." "I know," Commander Jisu replied. "That is why I'm contacting you. We cannot mobilize a full defense fleet in time. The best we can do is send evacuation ships, but even those will not arrive before the Kravik. We need to start preparing the Vellani to leave their planet. How many can we evacuate?" Jisu hesitated. "Maybe 30% of the population. 40, if we are lucky." Daeho closed his eyes. Tessara Prime had over 2 million Vellani. That meant more than 1 million people would be left behind. "That is not good enough," he said. "I know," Jisu said quietly, "but it is all we have." "I am sorry, Daeho. Start the evacuation protocols. I will arrive with the advanced ships as soon as I can." The screen went dark. Daeho stood in the communications center for a long moment, his mind racing. Then he grabbed his jacket and ran outside. The Vellani settlement was already in chaos by the time he arrived. Word of the Kravik had spread through their light-based communication network faster than any spoken message could travel. Everywhere Daeho looked, he saw Vellani gathered in frightened clusters. Their lights dimmed to near darkness as collective terror overtook them. He found Elder Sareem at the center of the main gathering area, surrounded by other council members. Their ancient faces were pale with fear. "The human ships cannot save us all," Sareem said when he saw Daeho approach. "We know this already. We have made a decision." His voice trembled slightly. "The outer settlements will be sacrificed. We will focus evacuation on the core population. The edges must be left behind to buy time." Daeho felt cold anger rise in his chest. "The outer settlements include the exile zones," he said. "You are going to abandon Yuna." Serene's light flickered with something that might have been shame. "She was already abandoned long ago, human. This changes nothing for her." "It changes everything," Daeho said. "You are choosing to let her die. We are choosing to save as many as we can." Sareem's voice hardened. "Do not lecture us about difficult choices. We do what we must for our people." Daeho turned and walked away without another word. He ran through the settlement, past the panicking crowds, past the crying children, past the Vellani whose lights had gone so dim they were almost invisible. He ran until he reached the edge of the world, where a single light burned bright against the darkness. Yuna was standing in her garden when he arrived, her face turned toward the stars. She had heard the news already. Of course she had. Light traveled faster than feet. "They are leaving me behind," she said quietly. It was not a question. "I am not leaving you," Daeho said, breathing hard from his run. "I am staying right here." Yuna turned to look at him, her blazing light illuminating his face. "That is foolish. You should evacuate with the others. You have a life to live, Daeho, a future. Do not throw it away for someone like me." "Someone like you?" Daeho stepped closer. "You mean someone brave? Someone kind? Someone who has survived 18 years of isolation without becoming bitter or cruel. Yuna, you are exactly the kind of person worth staying for." A light flickered, a tiny variation that Deho had learned to recognize as deep emotion. The Kravik will kill us both. Then we will face them together. Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something she had never done before. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, pressing her face against his shoulder. Her light blazed around them both like a protective flame. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." They stood like that for a long time, two small figures against the vast darkness of space. The next 16 hours passed in a blur of activity. Evacuation ships arrived from the Galactic Union, filling the sky with their massive shadows. Valani streamed toward the landing zones, carrying what few possessions they could manage. The air was filled with the silent flashing of their frightened lights, a storm of fear and grief that no human could truly understand. Deho helped where he could, coordinating with Commander Jisoo and the other human personnel. He watched families torn apart as some were chosen for evacuation and others were left behind. He saw parents giving their children to strangers, hoping that at least the young ones might survive. It was heartbreaking, but even in the chaos, he kept returning to Yu Enadad. She had not moved from her small shelter. She sat in her garden, watching the evacuation with those beautiful, reflective eyes. Her light burned as steady as ever, and Deho thought he could see something new in her expression. Not fear, not despair, something else entirely. "What are you thinking?" he asked her. "I am thinking about my light," she said slowly. "All my life, I have been taught that it is a curse, a weapon that hurts everyone around me. But watching my people run, watching them flee in terror from an enemy they cannot fight, I am beginning to wonder." She turned to look at him. "What if my light is not a curse? What if it was always meant to be something else?" "What do you mean?" Eunice stood up and faced the distant stars, where the Kravik fleet was growing closer with every passing hour. "The Kravik evolved in darkness," she said. "Their homeworld has no sun. They see perfectly in shadow, but bright light is painful to them. That is why they raid at night. That is why they fear fire." Deho felt understanding dawn. "Your light," he breathed. "It could hurt them. It could blind them," Eunice said. "It could drive them back. All these years, I have been hiding, dimming myself as much as I could, ashamed of what I am. But maybe—" She hesitated. "Maybe I was wrong to hide. Maybe the thing that made me a monster to my own people is the thing that could save them." Deho looked at her, at this woman who had been rejected and abandoned and cast out, standing tall against the coming darkness. "You are not a monster," he said. "You never were. And if you want to fight, I will stand beside you." Yuna's light blazed brighter than Deho had ever seen it. Not with rage, not with pain, with something far more powerful, with hope. "Then let us show the Kravik what it means to face the Burning One," she said. Behind them, the evacuation ships rose into the sky, carrying the lucky few to safety. Ahead of them, the Kravik fleet drew closer, hungry for blood and conquest. And between the fleeing and the approaching, two figures stood together in a small garden at the edge of the world, a human who refused to run, and a Valani whose light was finally ready to burn. Yuna stood alone at the edge of the crystal forest, her light burning bright against the purple sky of Tessara Prime. She watched the distant settlement where her people lived, their soft glows moving like gentle fireflies in the evening air. They were beautiful, they were peaceful, and they were terrified of her. The Valani were a gentle species. They stood tall and thin, with skin like pale moonlight, and eyes that reflected the colors of their emotions. They spoke through light, their bodies glowing in soft pulses that carried meaning, feeling, and connection. A dim blue meant sadness. A warm yellow meant happiness. A soft pulse meant friendship. Their entire civilization was built on this gentle communication, and violence was something they could not even imagine. But Yuna was different. She had been different since the day she was born. Her light never dimmed. It never pulsed softly like the others. Instead, it burned constant and bright, a blazing white fire that hurt the eyes of anyone who came close. To her people, constant bright light meant only one thing: rage, permanent aggression, a mind broken beyond repair. She was 5 years old when her family left her at the edge of the settlement. Her mother had cried, her glow flickering with grief, but she could not stay near Yuna. The light was too painful. It screamed anger into her mind, even though Yuna felt nothing but love and confusion. Now Yuna was 23 years old, and she had spent 18 years alone. She lived in a small shelter made of crystal and woven plants. She grew her own food in a tiny garden. She watched her people from a distance, learning their ways, loving them even though they could never love her back. Sometimes, young Vallani children would dare each other to come close to her dwelling. They would run screaming and laughing when they saw her light, calling her the Burning One, the monster at the edge of the world. Yuna never chased them. She never shouted. She simply went back inside her shelter and tried not to cry. The Galactic Union had established a small observation outpost on the other side of the settlement. Humans worked there, studying Vallani culture and biology. The Vallani tolerated them because humans were strange creatures who could not read bioluminescent signals. To the Vallani, humans were like blind people stumbling through a world of color, harmless, confusing, but acceptable. Daiho was one of those humans. He was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life forms. He had come to Tessara Prime 3 months ago, fascinated by the Vallani and their unique way of communication. He spent his days recording their light patterns, learning their language, and trying to understand how an entire civilization could exist without spoken words. On this particular evening, Daiho was conducting a routine survey of the settlement's outer boundaries. He walked slowly, his recording device held up to capture the gentle glows of the Vallani going about their evening routines. The crystal trees around him caught their light and scattered it into rainbows across the ground. Then he saw something strange. A group of Vallani were moving quickly away from a particular direction. Their lights flickered with fear, a rapid pulsing that Daiho had learned to recognize. They were not just walking away. They were fleeing. Daiho turned to look at what they were running from in the distance. Near a small shelter at the very edge of the settlement, he saw a single light. But this light was not like the others. It did not pulse or shift. It burned steady and bright, like a small star trapped on the ground. He had never seen anything like it. Daiho made his way toward the light. As he walked, he noticed that the area around the shelter was empty. No other Vallani lived nearby. No paths led to it except one thin trail that looked rarely used. It was as if this place had been deliberately isolated from everything else. When he got closer, he saw her. She was Vallani. That much was clear. She had the same tall, thin body, the same reflective eyes, the same delicate features. But her light was different. It blazed from her skin like white fire, constant and unwavering. She stood in her small garden, tending to her plants, her movements careful and slow. She looked up and saw him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Daiho watched her eyes widen with something that looked like fear. Not fear of him, he realized. Fear for him. She took a step back and raised her hands in a gesture that needed no translation. Stay away. Daiho did not stay away. He walked closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming any sense of caution. He had read nothing in his research about a Vallani with constant bioluminescence. This was something new, something unknown. The Vallani female backed up until she was pressed against the wall of her shelter. Her light seemed to grow even brighter, though Daiho did not know if that was intentional or simply a stress response. He stopped a few meters away and held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Hello," he said out loud, knowing she probably could not understand his words. "I am not going to hurt you." She stared at him with those beautiful, terrified eyes. Deho slowly sat down on the ground, making himself smaller and less threatening. He pointed to himself and said his name. "Deho." Then he pointed to her and tilted his head in question. For a long moment, she did not respond. Her light continued to burn, and Deho found himself thinking that it was actually quite beautiful. Like a candle flame. Like starlight. He did not understand why anyone would run from something so lovely. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft and musical, and to his surprise, she used the common galactic language that most spacefaring species learned. "You should leave," she said. "My light will hurt you. Everyone who comes close suffers. Please go away before I harm you." Deho smiled gently. "Your light does not hurt me," he said. "Humans cannot feel bioluminescent signals the way your people do. To me, you just look like you are glowing. That is all." She stared at him as if he had said something impossible. You do not feel the rage?" she whispered. "I feel nothing but curiosity," Deho said. "And honestly, I think your light is beautiful." Something broke in her eyes then. Not a bad breaking, but the breaking of a wall that had stood too long. The light flickered for just a moment, the first variation Deho had seen, and he realized she was experiencing an emotion so strong that even her constant glow could not contain it. "No one has ever said that to me," she said. "No one has ever stayed." Deho remained sitting on the ground, his expression calm and friendly. "Well," he said, "I am staying now. What is your name?" She hesitated, as if she had not spoken her own name out loud in a very long time. "Yuna," she finally said. "My name is Yuna." And for the first time in 18 years, someone did not run away. Deho came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. At first, Yuna did not know what to do with him. She had spent so many years alone that she had forgotten how to have a conversation. She would start to speak and then stop, unsure if her words made sense. She would look away when he looked at her, still half expecting him to flinch from her light, but Deho never flinched. He sat in her garden and talked about his work, about the stars, about his home planet called Earth. He asked her questions about Volani culture, about the plants she grew, about her life before the exile. He listened to her answers with genuine interest. His strange human eyes meeting hers without any trace of pain or fear. It was the most wonderful and confusing experience of Yuna's life. "Why do you keep coming here?" she asked him one afternoon, as they sat together under the shade of a crystal tree. "Your people must have rules against this. Interfering with alien cultures." Deho nodded slowly. "We do have rules," he admitted. "But there is a difference between interfering with a culture and refusing to let someone suffer alone. You are not a cultural practice, Yuna. You are a person. And no rule in the galaxy should force me to ignore a person in pain." Yuna turned her face away so he would not see her expression. Her light burned steady as always, but inside she felt like she was falling apart. "I am not in pain," she said quietly. "I have accepted what I am." "Those two things are not the same," Deho said gently. She did not have an answer for that. The days turned into weeks. Deho brought her things from the human outpost. Books translated into the common language. Food from other worlds that she had never tasted. A small music device that played strange but beautiful human melodies. Each gift was practical and thoughtful, never too much, never overwhelming. He also brought her something far more valuable, information. "I have been studying your condition," he told her one evening, pulling out a small data pad. "The constant bioluminescence. It is not a mental illness, Yuna. It is a genetic variation. Your body produces more light-generating cells than normal, and they lack the off switch that other Vellani have. That is all. There was nothing wrong with your mind. Yuna stared at him. But the council said, "The council does not have access to human medical science," Deho interrupted. "They interpreted your condition through their own cultural understanding. To them, constant bright light means constant anger. But that is not what is happening inside you. Your body is simply built differently. Your emotions are normal. Your mind is healthy. You are not broken." Yuna felt her light pulse for just a moment, a flicker of something she could not name. "Then why does my light hurt them so much?" Deho leaned forward, his expression serious. "Because Vellani evolved to communicate through light. Their brains interpret bioluminescent signals automatically, like how humans automatically interpret facial expressions. When they look at you, their brains receive a constant signal of extreme aggression. It is not your fault, and it is not their fault. It is simply a mismatch between your biology and their perception." "A mismatch," Yuna repeated softly. "That is a kind way to describe being a monster." "You are not a monster," Deho said firmly. "You are a person with a rare condition, living among people who do not have the knowledge to understand it. That is a tragedy, not a moral failing." Yuna wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe him so badly that it hurt. Their friendship did not go unnoticed. Elder Sareem was one of the oldest and most respected members of the Vellani Council. His light had faded to a pale silver with age, but his mind was still sharp. He had watched the human scientist visiting the exile zone with growing concern. And finally he decided to act. He found Deho at the observation outpost one morning and requested a private conversation. "You have been spending time with the Burning One," Sareem said, his light pulsing with careful neutrality. He spoke the common language slowly, as if each word required effort. "Her name is Yuna," Deho replied. "I know her name," Sareem said. "I was there when she was born. I was there when we made the decision to exile her. It was not done with cruelty, human. It was done with sorrow. Her presence caused physical pain to everyone around her. Children cried. Adults collapsed. We had no choice." Deho folded his arms. "I understand that you believe you had no choice, but your understanding of her condition is incomplete. She is not broadcasting aggression. Her body simply produces constant light. There is no malice in her. Intent does not matter when the effect is suffering," Sareem said. "If I accidentally set fire to a building, the building still burns. Her light still hurts us, regardless of what she feels inside. Then perhaps the solution is to change how your people perceive her, rather than isolating her forever." Sareem's light flickered with something that might have been frustration. "You do not understand our ways. You cannot feel what we feel when we look at her. The signal is overwhelming. It is like standing next to a scream that never stops. We are not being cruel. We are protecting our people from genuine harm." "And what about protecting her?" Deho asked quietly. Sareem was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was tired. "I have asked myself that question many times, human. I do not have a good answer, but I did not come here to debate philosophy. I came to warn you. Your interference is being noticed. If you continue to visit her, you may damage the relationship between your people and ours. Is one exile worth risking everything your outpost has worked to build?" Deho looked at the old Vellani with calm, steady eyes. "Yes," he said. "She is." Sareem studied him for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. That evening, Deho told Yuna about the conversation. He did not hide anything or soften the elder's words. He believed she deserved the truth. Yuna listened in silence, her light burning as steady as ever. "He is not wrong," she said when Deho finished. "I do cause them pain. That is not something your science can change. Even if I'm not angry inside, my light still screams at them. I am still the burning one. You are still Yuna, Deho said. And you deserve better than this. Better than what? This is my life. This has always been my life. Deho reached out and took her hand. It was the first time they had touched, and Yuna flinched as if she expected her light to hurt him. But he simply held her hand gently, his warm human skin against her cool Vellani fingers. Then let me be part of your life, he said. You have been alone for so long. Let me share some of that weight with you. Yuna looked at their joined hands. Her light did not dim, but something in her expression softened. What does it feel like? She asked quietly. When someone is not afraid of you? Deho smiled. It feels like this, he said. It feels like being seen. Yuna did not pull her hand away, for the first time in 18 years. She allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, she was not destined to be alone forever. Outside, the crystal forest caught the last light of the setting sun and scattered it into 1,000 colors. The distant settlement glowed softly in the evening air. And in her small garden at the edge of the world, Yuna sat with a human who looked at her blazing light and saw only beauty. It was a small thing. But small things can change everything. The Kravik came at dusk. Their landing ships fell from the sky like dark seeds, crashing into the fields outside the abandoned settlements. The ground shook with each impact. Dust and debris rose in great clouds, blocking out the fading light of the sun. Yuna watched from the crystal forest, her light carefully dimmed as much as she could manage. Deho crouched beside her, his heart pounding in his chest. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say. The first Kravik soldiers emerged from their ships, and Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. They were terrifying. Each Kravik stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies covered in thick black armor that seemed to absorb the remaining daylight. Their faces were hidden behind masks with multiple red eye lenses, and their hands ended in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through stone. They moved with the silent efficiency of predators, spreading out across the landscape in perfect formation. Behind them came the slave collectors, massive hovering vehicles equipped with energy nets and holding cells. The Kravik did not simply raid for resources. They took people. There are so many of them, Deho whispered. Yuna counted at least 200 soldiers in this group alone, and more ships were still landing in the distance. The Kravik had not come for a small raid. They had come to conquer. The soldiers began moving toward the settlement. Most of the buildings were empty now, evacuated in the chaos of the past hours. But not everyone had left. Some Vellani had refused to abandon their homes. Others had been too old or too sick to make the journey to the evacuation ships. And some had simply been forgotten in the rush. Deho saw them first, a small group of young Vellani hiding in the ruins of a collapsed building. Children, no older than 10 years, their lights flickering with terror. They must have been separated from their families during the evacuation. The Kravik saw them too. A squad of 5 soldiers changed direction, moving toward the children with that horrible silent purpose. The young Vellani tried to run, but they were trapped. The building had only one exit, and the Kravik were blocking it. Yuna did not think. She did not plan. She simply moved. Yuna, wait! Deho called, but she was already gone. She burst from the crystal forest like a comet falling to earth. Her light, which she had spent her whole life trying to suppress, now blazed with all the intensity she had never allowed herself to feel. Years of pain, loneliness, and shame transformed into pure radiant energy. The first Kravik soldier turned toward her and screamed. It was a sound Yuna had never heard before, the scream of a creature in agony. The soldier dropped his weapon and clawed at his mask, trying to shield his sensitive eyes from her brilliance. His companions did the same, stumbling backward, crashing into each other in their desperate attempt to escape her light. Yuna did not stop. She walked toward them, her glow growing brighter with every step. The air around her seemed to shimmer with heat, though she produced no warmth. It was pure light, concentrated and overwhelming, and to the darkness-born Kravik, it was worse than fire. "Run," she said to the children behind her. Her voice was calm, steady, completely at odds with the blazing fury of her light. "Run to the forest. Find the human. He will protect you." The children ran. They fled past the writhing Kravik soldiers, their small lights flickering with a mixture of fear and something that might have been wonder. The monster they had been taught to fear was saving them. The Kravik squad retreated, still screaming, still clawing at their burned eyes. Yuna let them go. She had no desire to kill. She only wanted to protect, but her action had not gone unnoticed. Across the battlefield, other Kravik units had seen what happened. Officers began shouting orders in their harsh, grating language. More soldiers turned toward her position, raising weapons that looked far more dangerous than simple claws. Deho reached her side, breathing hard from his run across the open ground. "That was incredible," he gasped. "But we need to move." "They are regrouping." "I know," Yuna said. Her light was dimming slightly now, the effort of that initial blast taking its toll. "I cannot maintain that intensity for long. It drains me. Then we fall back, regroup, plan our next move." They retreated into the crystal forest, the children following close behind. The trees here were ancient, their crystalline structures grown over thousands of years, into complex lattice that caught and scattered any light that passed through them. As Yuna moved among them, her glow bounced from crystal to crystal, creating patterns of brightness throughout the forest. Deho noticed something. "The crystals are amplifying you," he said. "Look, your light is spreading." Yuna looked around and saw that he was right. Each crystal tree was acting like a mirror, reflecting and multiplying her light in ways she had never expected. The forest around them glowed with borrowed radiance. "We can use this," she said slowly. "If we position ourselves correctly, the crystals could multiply my light across a much larger area." "We would need to draw them into the forest," Deho said. "Make them fight on our terms, not theirs." Before they could discuss further, a new sound filled the air, the roar of engines. Commander Jisu had arrived. A human military shuttle dropped through the clouds and landed in a clearing nearby. Jisu emerged with a squad of 10 human soldiers, all armed and armored for combat. She took one look at Yuna's blazing form and nodded as if she had expected nothing less. "Deho told me about you," she said. "The Burning One. I did not believe him until now. Will you help us?" Yuna asked. Jisu smiled grimly. "I cannot stop the Kravik fleet with 10 soldiers, but I can buy time until the main Union force arrives." She looked around at the crystal forest. "What is the plan?" Deho explained quickly. "Draw the Kravik into the forest. Use the crystals to amplify Yuna's light, blind and disorient them enough to disrupt their assault." It was a desperate plan, full of unknowns and risks. Jisu listened carefully, then nodded. "It is crazy enough to work. My soldiers will harry their flanks, keep them moving toward your position. When they enter the forest, your friend lights them up." "I have never done anything like this before," Yuna admitted. "I do not know if I can." Jisu looked at her with steady human eyes. "Every soldier faces a moment when they must become more than they were. This is yours. I have seen your light, Villani. It is not a curse. It is a weapon. Use it." The battle began minutes later. Jisu's soldiers struck at the Kravik from multiple angles, using hit-and-run tactics to confuse and enrage them. The Kravik, frustrated by enemies they could not pin down, pushed deeper into the crystal forest. Exactly as planned, Yuna stood at the heart of the forest, surrounded by the ancient crystal trees. The children had been sent to safety with one of Jisu's soldiers. Deho stood beside her, refusing to leave. "When they enter the central clearing, you give everything you have," he said. "Do not hold back. Do not dim yourself. For once in your life, let your light burn free." Yuna looked at him, this strange human who had changed everything. "What if I lose control? What if I hurt you?" Deho took her hand. "You will not hurt me," he said. "You never could. Now show them what the Burning One can really do." The first Kravik soldiers burst into the clearing. Yuna closed her eyes, reached deep inside herself, and let go of everything she had ever held back. Her light exploded outward like a supernova. The crystals caught it, multiplied it, scattered it in every direction. The entire forest blazed with unbearable brilliance. Kravik soldiers collapsed, screaming, blinded, their dark adapted eyes overwhelmed by a light more intense than any sun they had ever known. Yuna screamed too, not in pain but in release. 18 years of suppressed emotion, 18 years of shame and isolation and loneliness, all transformed into pure blazing radiance dot, and in that moment, she was no longer the monster at the edge of the world. She was a force of nature. She was the Burning One dot, and the Kravik learned to fear the light. The Kravik retreated. They did not simply fall back. They fled in complete disorder, soldiers trampling each other in their desperation to escape the blazing crystal forest. Their commanders screamed orders that no one followed. Their carefully planned invasion collapsed into chaos and terror. Yuna stood at the center of it all, her light slowly fading as exhaustion overtook her. She had given everything she had, and now her body trembled with the effort of simply remaining standing. Deho caught her as she began to fall. "I have you," he said, lowering her gently to the ground. "You did it, Yuna. You drove them back." "Not enough," she whispered. Her eyes were half closed, her voice barely audible. "There are more coming. I felt them. More ships. More soldiers. I cannot do that again." Deho looked up at the sky, where the shapes of Kravik reinforcement ships were indeed descending through the clouds. Yuna was right. One attack had not been enough. The Kravik were regrouping, bringing more soldiers to overwhelm the defenses through sheer numbers. Commander Jisu's voice crackled through his communication device. "Deho, we have a problem. The main Union fleet is still 3 hours away. We cannot hold that long. There has to be something we can do," Deho said. A new voice cut through the channel. Old, tired, but determined. "There is," Elder Serene said. Deho turned to see the ancient Villani emerging from the shadows of the crystal forest. Behind him came others, council members, settlers, Villani who had refused to evacuate. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They filled the forest clearing, their dim lights flickering with a mixture of fear and resolve. "We saw what she did," Serene said, approaching Yuna's fallen form. "We all saw it. The light we feared, the light we called a curse, it saved those children. It drove back the monsters. We were wrong about her." His voice cracked. "We were wrong about everything." He knelt beside Yuna and, for the first time in 18 years, looked directly at her burning light without turning away. "I am sorry," he said. "I am so sorry for what we did to you. For what I did to you. You deserved better. You deserve so much better." Yuna opened her eyes and looked at the old Villani who had once condemned her to exile. She saw the tears running down his face, his light pulsing with genuine grief and shame. And she felt something shift inside her chest. "You did what you thought was right," she said softly. "You protected your people the only way you knew how." "I protected them from the wrong enemy," Serene said. "But perhaps now we can make it right." He stood and turned to address the gathered Villani. "We cannot produce light like she can. but we are not completely dark either. If we stand together, if we combine our lights with hers, we may be able to create something powerful enough to drive the Kravik away forever." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some Valani shifted nervously. Others nodded with growing determination. "It will hurt," someone called out. "Standing near her will cause us pain." "Yes," Sareem agreed. "It will hurt. But our children are in danger. Our world is in danger. Is a little pain too high a price for their safety?" Silence fell over the clearing. Then, one by one, the Valani began to step forward. They surrounded Yuna in a great circle, hundreds of them, their dim lights flickering with courage they had never known they possessed. Some winced as they drew near her blazing form. Others gritted their teeth against the pain. But none of them ran. None of them turned away. Deho helped Yuna to her feet. She was weak, exhausted, barely able to stand. But as she looked around at the people who had feared her, rejected her, cast her out, now standing beside her by choice, she felt strength returning to her limbs. "You do not have to do this," she said to them. "I know how much it hurts you." "Pain passes," an elderly female Valani replied, her light pulsing with warm yellow despite her obvious discomfort. "But what we do today will be remembered forever. Let us give our children something worth remembering." The Kravik reinforcements entered the forest. They came in greater numbers this time. Hundreds of soldiers pushing through the crystal trees with weapons raised and eyes protected by heavier shielding. Their commanders had learned from the first attack. They would not be caught off guard again, but they had not expected what waited for them. At the center of the crystal forest stood a circle of light. Hundreds of Valani surrounded a single blazing figure, their own dim glows adding to hers, amplifying her radiance through their united presence. The crystals caught their combined light and multiplied it thousandfold. Yuna felt their energy flowing into her. It was not just light. It was love. It was acceptance. It was everything she had been denied for 18 years. Given freely now in her moment of greatest need, she raised her hands toward the approaching Kravik army. "This is our home," she said, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "And you are not welcome here." She released everything, the combined light of an entire people, focused through her body and amplified by the ancient crystals, exploded outward in a wave of pure brilliance. It swept across the battlefield like a tsunami of radiance, overwhelming everything in its path. Kravik soldiers fell by the hundreds, blinded, disoriented, utterly defeated. The wave did not stop at the forest's edge. It climbed into the sky, a pillar of light visible from orbit, a beacon that blazed across the entire planet. The Kravik ships hovering above saw it and began to retreat. Their commanders, watching from space, gave the order to withdraw. They had come to conquer a world of gentle, peaceful creatures. They had found something far more dangerous. When the Galactic Union fleet finally arrived 3 hours later, they found a planet at peace. The Kravik were gone, their invasion completely repelled. The crystal forests still glowed with fading light, a reminder of what had happened there. Commander Jisoo landed a shuttle in the main settlement and was met by a sight she would never forget. Yuna stood in the center of the gathering area, surrounded by her people. Not exiled, not feared, welcomed. Valani pressed close to her despite the discomfort of her light, touching her hands, expressing gratitude in 1,000 flickering pulses. Children, who had once called her monster, now looked at her with wonder and admiration. And beside her stood Deho, the human who had started everything by refusing to run away. "What do we call her now?" Jisoo asked Sareem, who stood nearby watching the celebration. The old Valani's light pulsed with something that looked like pride. "We call her the First Light," he said. "The one who showed us that what we feared most could also save us. She is not the burning one anymore. She is the beginning of something new." Later that night, When the celebrations had finally quieted and the Villani had returned to their homes, Yuna and Deho sat together in her small garden at the edge of the world. Her light burned as steady as ever, but there was a peace in her expression that had never been there before. Jisoo offered me a transfer to another posting, Deho said. A promotion, actually. Lead researcher on a new expedition to the Outer Rim. Yuna's light flickered, just for a moment. Are you going to take it? Deho smiled and shook his head. I told her I found something worth staying for. Yuna looked at him, at this strange human who had changed everything. Why? She asked. Why did you stay? That first day, when everyone else ran, why did you walk toward me instead of away? Deho thought about the question for a long moment. Because I know what it feels like to be different, he said finally. Humans are strange creatures in a galaxy full of species that communicate in ways we cannot understand. We are always the outsiders, always the ones who do not quite fit. When I saw you standing alone, rejected by your own people for something you could not control, I recognized something familiar. He took her hand, her burning light warming his skin, and I thought that maybe two outsiders, standing together, could be less alone than one. Yuna's light blazed brighter for just a moment, not with anger or pain, but with joy. Pure, overwhelming joy. Thank you, she said, for seeing me, for staying, for everything. Deho squeezed her hand. Thank you for showing me what courage really looks like. Above them, the stars wheeled through the purple sky of Tessara Prime. The crystal forests glowed softly in the darkness. And somewhere in the settlement, the Lani children told stories of the first light. The woman who had been too terrifying for her own species until a human stepped up and showed them all what she truly was. Not a monster, not a curse. A light in the darkness, and that light would never go out.